The stars glittered across the endless black sky like scattered diamonds. Deep in the Varun system, orbiting a planet long dead and forgotten, something extraordinary floated silently. It was massive, taller than mountains and wider than cities. Its surface was dark and reflective, yet hints of gold shimmered beneath, moving and folding like liquid metal. For 10,000 years, it had rejected every species that came near. Every attempt to claim it had failed. Ships had come and gone, their crews baffled, their hopes crushed. Every species had tried its strength, intelligence, or technology. Yet the armor never responded. It was as if it waited for something, or someone, it had never met before. The human ship Aurora's Light approached cautiously, its hull glinting under distant starlight. Captain Leora Santos stood at the bridge, eyes fixed on the massive silhouette of the armor below. Her crew was tense, but unlike the explorers who had come before, she felt a strange sense of hope. Humans had faced challenges before, and somehow, they always found a way. Perhaps it was their curiosity, their stubbornness, or their willingness to learn from mistakes. Whatever it was, Leora believed humans were different. "Distance to object is 20 kilometers and closing," said Tarek, a young engineer who had a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos. His fingers danced across the controls, analyzing data streaming in from the sensors. "The readings are strange. It's not rejecting our ship, but it's not interacting either. It's like it's..." Leora nodded. "Let's keep it slow." The crew watched in silence as the Aurora's light drew nearer. The armor seemed enormous up close, its surface rippling faintly, almost as if it were breathing. Unlike metal constructs or mechanical drones, it had a presence, an intelligence that radiated quietly but unmistakably. It had rejected thousands of species, each stronger, smarter, or more technologically advanced than humans. But now, it seemed curious. Tarek leaned forward. "Captain, I think I understand why every other species failed. They came with power or weapons, expecting to force the armor into submission. Humans, we don't do that. We observe, we experiment, we think differently. Then let's see if it likes humans," Leora said softly. There was no mockery in her voice, only a quiet determination. Humans had always found ways to turn impossible situations into opportunities. Perhaps this was another. The crew set up a scanning array, not to attack, but to communicate. They projected holographic images around the ship, showing symbols of unity, growth, and creativity. There were depictions of stars forming, plants growing, and cities rising, all in harmony with their surroundings. They hoped the armor would understand their intent. Hours passed. The crew grew restless, but the armor remained still, its massive form unmoving, except for the faint, liquid-like shifting of its surface. Then, as the sun of the distant system rose behind it, a thin line of light appeared along the armor's center. It shimmered and spread like sunlight, reflecting on water. The crew held their breath. "It's responding," whispered Tarek. The armor's surface moved again, this time more noticeably, as if it were testing the humans. Their holograms shifted in response, almost like a dance between them and the armor. Leora's heart raced. "Steady. Don't push it. Let it lead." For the first time in 10,000 years, the armor changed its shape. Panels shifted, folding and stretching, forming curves and angles that mirrored the holographic images humans had projected. The crew realized it was no longer rejecting them. It was learning from them. Tarek's voice trembled with excitement. "Captain, it's reshaping itself." The armor pulsed again, and a wave of energy washed over the ship. It was not harmful. Instead, it felt curious, protective. The ship's sensors recorded it. But more than that, The crew could feel it in their minds. The armor seemed to be probing their thoughts, understanding not just their words or actions, but their intentions. "It's alive," Leora breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not alive like us, but aware. It's thinking." Tarek nodded. "And it's never done that before. No species has ever inspired it." The hours stretched into days. The crew worked tirelessly, showing the armor more of their world. Holograms of rivers and mountains, laughter and music, art and literature. Every aspect of humanity they could convey without words. Slowly, the armor responded. It folded around the ship, creating a protective shell that moved with them. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't defensive. It was connected. One evening, as the distant sun dipped behind the horizon, the armor shifted in a new way. A chamber opened on its side, revealing a space just big enough for Tarek. The young engineer hesitated, then stepped forward. Inside, he found an environment that responded to his thoughts. Lights followed his gaze. Panels moved at his gestures, and holographic representations of his ideas appeared in the air. It was as if the armor was offering a blank canvas. He turned to the rest of the crew, eyes wide. "It wants to learn from us. It's giving us a chance to teach it." Leora joined him, placing her hand on a smooth panel. A surge of warmth traveled through her, but it was not heat. It was understanding. Images of human cooperation, compassion, and curiosity flowed into her mind. The armor was communicating, but not with words. It spoke in ideas, feelings, and intentions. "Every other species tried to dominate it," she said softly. "They wanted control, power, or knowledge. But we show it who we are, without demanding anything. Maybe that's why it responds." Days turned into weeks, and the crew worked tirelessly with the armor. They learned its language of light and sound, of movement and reflection. Every time they presented a new idea, the armor shifted and adapted, its massive form folding in ways that were elegant and protective. It became clear to the crew that the armor had a purpose, but it had been waiting for a species that approached with respect, curiosity, and creativity. Humans, with their endless questions, their desire to learn, and their willingness to cooperate, had finally reached it. Then, one morning, as the planet's horizon glowed with the first light of a distant star, the armor did something completely unexpected. It reshaped itself around the aurora's light, enveloping the ship in a seamless exoskeleton. The crew could feel it moving with them, sensing their intentions and reacting before they even acted. It was no longer a distant guardian or an unreachable relic, it was a partner. "It's bonded with us," whispered Tarek, barely able to contain his excitement. "It's never done this before. 10,000 years, and it's only now, with us." Leora felt a surge of pride and wonder. This changes everything. Not just for us, but for everyone. The armor isn't a weapon. It isn't a prize. It's a teacher, a guardian, something beyond anything we imagined, and it chose humans. The crew stared in awe as the armor pulsed with light, sending waves across the planet below. For the first time in millennia, it had accepted a species. It had finally found someone worthy, not by strength or intelligence, but by their ability to think, create, and cooperate. As they drifted in orbit, Leora looked at her crew and smiled. This is only the beginning. 10,000 years of waiting. And now, it's time to see what comes next. The armor shimmered one final time for the day, reflecting the glow of distant stars. It had rejected thousands before, yet it had waited for humanity. A species small in number, but immense in potential. For the first time in 10,000 years, the universe felt alive, full of promise, and full of possibilities. And somewhere deep inside, that massive, shifting shell, the armor learned something new. It learned that humans could inspire hope, not fear. That their curiosity could teach even an ancient, unyielding sentinel to move, to change, to evolve. The aurora's light floated silently as the armor adjusted its form around them. Outside, the dead planet remained quiet, but a gentle shimmer of life seemed to hang in the air. For the humans aboard, the impossible had become real. They were no longer visitors to a relic of the past, they were partners in something greater, something alive. Something that had waited 10,000 years for them alone. And for the first time, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what humans and their unexpected guardian might create together. The aurora's light glided gently in orbit, completely enveloped by the armor. The massive construct no longer seemed distant or alien. It moved with them, sensing their intentions, and reacting almost before the crew themselves realized. Every gesture, every thought, was mirrored in subtle changes of light and motion across the armor's surface. For the humans aboard, it was both breathtaking and humbling. Tarek spent hours inside the interface chamber, learning the language of the armor. It was unlike any programming or system he had ever known. It responded not to commands or codes, but to ideas, intentions, and patterns of creativity. Every thought he projected formed shimmering shapes that rippled and danced before being absorbed by the armor. Slowly, the massive sentinel began to transform. Panels bent and reshaped themselves into smooth surfaces that extended outward like branches of a growing tree. But their form was elegant and purposeful. Leora observed from the bridge, noting how the armor seemed to protect them almost instinctively. It anticipated minor movements, buffered the ship's course, and adjusted its shields with a precision no technology had ever matched. "It's learning from us," she said softly to herself. "And we're learning from it." The first test came unexpectedly. A faint meteor shower swept past the planet, tiny rocks traveling at tremendous speed. Sensors picked them up late, and before anyone could react, the armor shifted. Its surface rippled and extended outward, forming a protective lattice around the aurora's light. The meteors struck harmlessly, bouncing off or disintegrating before reaching the ship. The crew cheered quietly, amazed. Tarek grinned. "It's not just protecting us. It's thinking ahead. It's seeing possibilities we can't see." Leora nodded. "It's more than a shield. It's alive in its own way. And it's showing us a new kind of partnership." The next days passed in a blur of discovery. The crew realized the armor could amplify not just protection but their own abilities. Tarek could manipulate holographic forms with a thought, designing intricate structures and machines that the armor could build instantly. Scientists conducted experiments, projecting ideas for new energy sources, communication methods, and environmental enhancements. Every successful project taught the armor more about human ingenuity, cooperation, and creativity. It was not a simple process. The armor was curious and cautious. It would test every idea, ask silent questions through pulses of light and waves of energy, and sometimes reject an approach that it did not understand. But humans were patient. They adapted, reshaped their thinking, and offered new perspectives. Slowly, trust grew. The bond was not just mechanical, it was intellectual and emotional. One day, Tarek suggested a bold idea. "What if we try to bring life back to this planet?" he said, pointing to the barren landscape below. "It's dead now, but it could thrive again. The armor has the power. We just need to guide it." Leora hesitated. "We must be careful. We don't know its full capabilities yet. But it could be our first real test of partnership." They began slowly. First, they projected water flows and plant growth patterns as holographic models. The armor observed, reshaping panels and conduits to simulate irrigation and sunlight absorption. Then, Tiny seeds, organic matter carefully preserved, were placed in the simulation. The armor reacted, forming delicate structures that nourished and protected each seed, ensuring growth in ways no human alone could achieve. The first sprouts appeared in mere hours. Green shoots poked through the cracked soil, bending toward the simulated sunlight created by the armor's energy fields. Birds, small at first, formed from genetic data the humans had studied in archives. Slowly, the planet seemed to breathe again. Other alien species in nearby systems noticed the changes. Explorers who had once sought the armor approached cautiously, watching humans and the Sentinel from a distance. They expected conflict or violence, but there was none. Humans did not dominate or control. They worked alongside the armor, showing creativity, patience, and care. Word spread across the galaxy: an ancient, perfect machine had been tamed not by force, but by intelligence and morality. Leora felt a swell of pride and responsibility. The armor chose us because we could teach it, but it also teaches us. Every day we learn more about life, about creation, about ourselves. Tarek smiled, adjusting holographic projections. It's amazing. We've spent thousands of years thinking life is fragile and fleeting. But with the armor, it's not just protection. It's a chance to build, to nurture, to grow. Weeks turned into months. The armor reshaped entire regions of the planet. Oceans and rivers reappeared. Mountains and valleys formed with care. The once dead world became a haven of life, energy, and color. Humans experimented responsibly, always guided by curiosity and ethics. The armor began to communicate more clearly. Patterns of light became intricate symbols, pulsing in rhythm with thoughts and intentions. It asked questions about emotions, empathy, and morality. The crew realized it was learning not just science, but philosophy. It wanted to understand not only how humans acted, but why. One night, as Leora watched the planet from the bridge, she saw a shimmering signal rising from the armor. It was a message, sent into the galaxy, a silent, glowing beacon of possibility. The armor was showing the universe that humans had unlocked something more profound than power. They had demonstrated curiosity, cooperation, and compassion. "This is remarkable," Leora whispered. "We're not just explorers anymore. We're ambassadors. And the armor, it's our partner in shaping the future." The galaxy began to notice. Other species approached, cautiously, drawn by the changes on the planet. Some were curious, some skeptical. But humans welcomed them, showing that the armor's lessons were not limited to them alone. By working together, species could achieve something far greater than any single civilization could. Tarek leaned over the console, eyes wide. "It's like the armor is teaching the galaxy what we already knew. Intelligence alone isn't enough. It's what you do with it, how you create, care, and cooperate. That counts." The armor pulsed in agreement. Its massive form expanded slightly, rippling across the planet's surface, forming structures that glowed with energy. Cities emerged, not imposed, but grown naturally with guidance. Energy grids, communications, and transport systems followed organic patterns. Nature and technology intertwined seamlessly, showing that life and innovation could coexist in harmony. Humans explored the possibilities with joy. Children were introduced to the armor's chambers, learning to manipulate energy and matter through ideas and creativity. Art and music were enhanced by the armor's responsiveness. Ideas once considered impossible became tangible. Every day brought new lessons, and the bond between humanity and the armor deepened. For the first time in 10,000 years, the armor had found a species worthy not of conquest, but of partnership. And humans, small and fragile in the vastness of space, had shown that their creativity, compassion, and cooperation were enough to awaken something ancient and magnificent. Leora stood on the bridge one evening, watching the planet shimmer with life. "We've done something incredible," she said softly. "Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we believed in learning, in growing, and in creating together. That's what the armor wanted to see. That's what the galaxy needs to see." Tarek joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And it's just the beginning. Imagine what we can do next. Imagine what other species could achieve if they learned the same lessons." The armor pulsed gently, a massive, silent heartbeat in the darkness of space. It had learned from humans, and humans had learned from it. Together, they were not just reshaping a planet, they were shaping the future of life itself. In the quiet that followed, the stars seemed brighter, the galaxy somehow closer. The armor had rejected every species for 10,000 years, waiting for one that could teach it a new way of being. And now, with humans, it had finally found its partner. Together, they would explore, create, and protect, not through force, but through understanding, ingenuity, and care. And as the first fully grown forests swayed in the gentle artificial winds, as rivers shimmered with life, and as cities glowed in harmony with nature, the humans understood a truth that echoed across the universe. Intelligence is nothing without purpose. Curiosity is nothing without cooperation. And life is greatest when it is shared. The armor, once a silent sentinel of rejection, had become a beacon of possibility. And humanity, once a small, fragile species in a vast galaxy, had become a shining example of what it truly meant to be alive. Together, they had rewritten the rules of existence, not with power or domination, but with creativity, empathy, and unwavering hope. And for the first time, the galaxy saw a future it had never imagined, one where humans, and the armor that had waited 10,000 years, led the way toward a new era of life, growth, and infinite possibility.